This is Tom Dillon, the Lifetime Liberal, and today is Saturday, February 4th, 2017. The title of this rant will be Mr. Minority's First Foray into War, Catastrophe in Yemen. So last week we heard that there was a raid in Yemen. The Minority Administration put out that it was a tremendous success, that they were sure that the information that they had got by that raid was going to save American lives. And unfortunately, there was one American from part of SEAL Team 6 who passed away in it. Mr. Minority then went out to Dover Air Force Base to honor the remains. And case closed. We had a great success in Yemen. Well, the answer to that is no. What we found out is that up to 30 civilians may have been killed, including women and children. The first pushback by the Minority Administration on that was that those women were actually firefighters as part of it, which could have been true, but there were women and children who were killed in that raid. So Sean Spicer, whatever he is, he went out and basically talked about a January 6th deputies meeting, basically putting it back to the Obama administration. And his exact words were, and I'm going to sort of quote this here, is that the deputies meetings, that there was a recommendation to go ahead, that it was so easily approved that it was sent straight up. And then part of that was the conclusion of that was that it needed to be done on a moonless night, and therefore it couldn't have been done in the Obama administration because the time of that deputies meeting, there wouldn't be one until the Minority Administration came in. So it makes it look as if it was approved by Obama and that it was their decision to make that raid. All false! So what we know now, because there were people at that deputies meeting who said, no, that's not the case at all. One of them was a guy named Colin Kahl, K-A-H-L, who basically indicated a couple things. Is that when they had the deputies meeting, that the Pentagon had come in there and they had asked for, let's just say, general authority to conduct more invasive raids or targets in Yemen. So they wanted the authority to do it. There was no specific raid or target that had been brought up. And let's also remember that we really hadn't done any specific, any type of combat in Yemen. We'd done some combat in Syria with boots on the ground, but we really had not done that in Yemen at all. So this was a big thing. Mr. Kahl later went to go to point out that you have your deputies meetings, they get all together, they discuss all the options, they come up with the conclusion, they send it to the cabinet level, the cabinets meet, they talk about everything, they have their people in there, they make a decision, they send it up to the president. The president, in most instances, would then bring in his National Security Council, where there would be defense people. They would talk about all of the arms and the raid and all whatever target it was that would be going on and how it would be conducted. You'd have your intelligence people in there talking about what they knew about what was going on in that specific area and how it could be affected. It's essentially what the risk assessment would be in that particular area for that particular target or that particular raid. You'd have the State Department there to talk about the political ramifications of it. In the case of Yemen, if there be civilian casualties, if there be women and children killed, and let's just say how that might affect the tribal aspect of what's going on in Yemen. So there'd be a lot of stuff going on. Mr. Kahl went to point out that none of that happened. You know, in Mr. Minority's administration, when the decision was made to send American troops into harm's way, where one of them was killed. So the ownership of this whole thing is with Mr. Minority himself, because what happened also at that deputies meeting was that the decision was made was that they were not going to burden the Minority Administration with making that decision ahead of time. They basically said, we're going to hand this off to Mr. Minority and his administration. So Mr. Minority has ownership of this whole thing. So let's get this straight. The deputies meeting, nothing was decided on a specific target or a specific raid, and All the Pentagon asked for was general approval for the authority to do something like that. And then when it came to the raid itself, the deputies meeting didn't go back to meet. There was no cabinet meeting. There was no National Security Council. Apparently, Mr. Minority was briefed on it one day, had dinner the next day with Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. Neither of them know anything about the Middle East. They don't know anything about war or let's just say the Defense Department, considering their nominal time in government as of right now, and the Secretary of Defense. So I would make the conclusion right here that whoever put that into Mr. Minority's ear, whether that be Mike Flynn or someone else, basically sugarcoated the possible, let's just say, resistance or the possible risk assessment, didn't give a strong risk assessment, sugarcoated it right from the beginning. Mr. Minority was assured that this would be, let's just use the term, slam dunk, and it would all work out great. So someone got to Mr. Minority. They yucked it up at dinner. They didn't go from their dinner to go downstairs into the Situation Room to make that final decision on that. No, it was made at the dinner. So what we know about right now from that is that we've known for a long time that even before the problem started in Syria, we already knew, the United States already knew, that the biggest problem in the Middle East, even if you want to say, outside of, let's say, Iran, if you want to put Iran on the top, is Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. So we know that Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula had intelligence. They had firepower. They had mines. They had landmines. They had other types of traps. That this raid, if you want to call it a raid, was compromised even before it started, because it didn't get the type of vetting that needed to be done to make an informed decision as to whether or not to send our best and our finest into harm's way. So they hailed it as a success. The Minority Administration hailed it as a success. They were confident that the information that they had gotten from that would save American lives. And of course, Mr. Minority went to Dover to honor that fallen American hero, let's just say. But as our first attempt in the Minority Administration into war, it was a complete catastrophe. The problem is that Mr. Minority is doing so many ridiculous things all at the same time, because immigration is getting the biggest thing right now, that most of what people will hear and anything anyone would hear on Fox will be that this was a great success. And Mr. Minority, because he's already been told that it was a great success, he already was told that it would be easy and it was sugarcoated about it, that this just sort of happens in the time of war, that he needs to be prepared for this, could easily do other ventures like this without the type of risk assessment that's necessary to save American lives and to assure that we're not hurting civilians as we go into these other areas, into these, let's just say, dangerous areas in the world. That was a catastrophe from the beginning. It does not bode well for the Minority Administration, and the need for vehement, nonviolent, continual resistance must be maintained from